All right, let's talk about Supermicro. One of the undisputed darlings of this whole AI hardware boom, and the absolutely stunning collapse that just recently sent shockwaves through the entire market.
Okay, get this. Negative 33%. That's how much the company's stock just plummeted. And we're not talking over a year or even a month. This happened in a single day, a single trading session. For a company this big, that's just an almost unheard of implosion.
So, this wasn't just a bad day at the office or some simple market correction. Nope, this was a $5 billion wipeout. So you gotta ask, right? What on earth could cause a catastrophe like this? Well, that's exactly what we're gonna break down right now.
So the whole story really kicks off on March 19th, 2026. That's the day the U.S. Department of Justice unsealed a criminal indictment, and get this, it had a name that sounds like it was ripped straight out of a spy movie: Operation Dummy Server.
Right at the center of this whole thing, this alleged $2.5 billion smuggling ring, were three key people. But the really shocking name on this list, it was Yeshian Wally Leo. And look, this wasn't just some random rogue employee. This guy was a co-founder and a senior vice president of the whole company. Unbelievable.
So how did this whole scheme supposedly work? Well, the DOJ laid out this really simple, kind of clever three-step pass-through strategy. Step 1, you sell these incredibly powerful AI servers, the ones packed with restricted Nvidia GPUs, to what looks like a totally legit company somewhere in Southeast Asia. But here's the kicker. Step 2, those servers, they never even get plugged in there. They're immediately rerouted to restricted companies in China, completely sidestepping U.S. export rules. And the final step, just lie. Lie to everyone about where that hardware actually ended up.
And the ways they allegedly covered their tracks, it's just so brazen. The indictment talks about a hairdryer method, seriously, a hairdryer, to peel off serial number stickers and Made in USA labels. And to fool the auditors, they would supposedly set up these warehouses with rows and rows of empty server boxes, the dummy servers, making it look like millions of dollars of gear was right there. But the whole time, the real hardware was already up and running in China, with its location logs conveniently scrubbed clean.
Okay, so to really get why this news caused such a massive, an existential crisis for the company, you first have to understand what makes Supermicro so special in the first place. What makes them so valuable?
So their whole business model is built around this idea they call building block solutions. The best way to think about it? It's like a super high-tech Lego set, but for data centers. See, while their competitors, Dell, HPE, they sell more rigid, one-size-fits-all servers, Supermicro can just snap together custom servers for really specific AI tasks, and they do it fast, using this huge catalog of modular parts. And that brings us to the most crucial point. Their entire advantage, their whole selling point, is built on one thing: speed. When a company is desperate to get a new AI model up and running, Supermicro can build and ship the perfect custom hardware in just a few weeks. Their rivals, it could take them months. And, in this AI arms race we're in, that kind of speed is literally everything.
But with a criminal indictment hanging over your head, one that alleges national security violations, well, suddenly that speed advantage gets completely overshadowed by huge blinking red lights of risk. And because of that, we're now seeing the market do what it always does in these situations. It's called a flight to quality.
And this right here, this is the single biggest threat to the company's survival. Analysts are calling it the Nvidia risk. Think about it. Supermicro's speed totally depends on their amazing partnership with Nvidia, which gives them early access to the best, most sought-after GPUs in the world. So what happens if Nvidia, worried about its own reputation, decides to cut Supermicro off from that early supply chain? It's basically the death penalty for their business model. It would be crippled, literally overnight.
And this really lays out the choice the customers are facing right now. Do you stick with the fast, agile Supermicro, which now has this massive governance risk sticker slapped on it? Or do you take your billion-dollar orders and move them over to a stable, established giant like Dell, a company that's known for its rock-solid compliance, a company that's just seen as safe? You can bet for a lot of CIOs out there, that's not a very hard decision to make.
And yeah, the market is absolutely voting with its wallet. On the exact same day that Supermicro lost a third of its value, guess whose stock jumped up by about 5%? Dell's. It's a crystal clear bet from investors. They believe Supermicro's loss is going to be Dell's gain, as all those customers run away from the risk.
But here's the thing. This is the last really crucial piece of the puzzle. Because while that indictment on March 20th was a huge shock to the system, if you actually look at the company's history, you'll see the warning signs of a major problem like this have been flashing for years.
I mean, look at this timeline. It shows a pretty clear and troubling pattern, right? Back in 2018, they actually got temporarily kicked off the NASDAQ because they failed to file financial reports. Then in 2020, they had to pay a $17.5 million fine to the SEC for accounting violations. Fast forward to 2024, and the famous short seller Hindenburg Research puts out a report that, looking back, was just eerily accurate. It alleged the exact same kind of sanctions evasion to China that the DOJ is now charging them with. And then came the final massive red flag.
So in late 2024, their own auditor, Ernst Young, just resigned. And you have to hear the reason they gave. In a public filing, they flat out stated they could, and I quote, no longer rely on management's representations. For a huge accounting firm to say that about a client, I mean, that is the corporate equivalent of a 5-alarm fire. It's basically the auditor publicly shouting that they have zero confidence in the company's leadership.
So when you put it all together, it really boils down to this one fundamental question. Supermicro built its entire empire on being the fastest, most agile player in the game. But in that relentless, all-out pursuit of speed, did they sacrifice the important stuff? You know, the security, the compliance, the basic controls that you need to be a stable, trustworthy company. Well, it looks like the market has already delivered its verdict, and now the justice system is about to deliver its own.